Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi as I am live streaming again, and I think I'm gradually getting the hang of this. If you are having any problems, please put it down in the chat and let me know what the problem is. I'm particularly concerned about whether there's an audio problem. I'm showing that there's audio here, so I got my fingers crossed that that is indeed going to be the case. Plus, I figured out how you can see me full screen. Okay, so you got a bigger shot of me there. But I'm going to shrink myself down anyhow. Okay, so why don't we take a look at what's going on this afternoon weather-wise. This way, not only do you get to see what the weather's going to be like, but I can at least get a good handle on what it is I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to shrink myself down very, very tiny and put myself in the corner. And this is the Storm Predictions Center severe weather risk for today, the rest of today and this evening. You'll notice that in the Northeast, there's absolutely no risk of any thunderstorms. We have a marginal risk of severe weather in the southeastern part of the U.S. From coastal North Carolina on down into southern Georgia, another area of marginal risk across eastern Texas and southwestern Louisiana. And we have this area of slight to enhanced risk. They've been getting really hit pretty hard in the upper Midwest in the last few weeks. And there's some more showers and thunderstorms that are going to be occurring in that part of the country. They're already there. You can see the radar echoes on the background. We also have a small area of marginal risk in the northern Rockies. And we have a marginal risk going on in the southern Rockies. So I'm just going to roll this back. And we'll move on to some of the weather conditions here in the Northeast. And, you know, our radars here are pretty clean and quiet. Here's the New York radar showing no precipitation to worry about at all. Let me just get you a clearer view here. And you can see there's nothing going on in terms of the radar echoes whatsoever. And when we look at the regional radar, and I'll pull that up for you in just a second here, so I get the hang of all of this. Here's our regional radar view, and you can take a look at that. Let me just get these out of the way. I'm still trying to work the kinks out of all of this, folks, so just bear with me. You got some showers and thunderstorms going on across upstate New York. And on up and through northern New England. If you just joined me, by the way, let me know if you're having any problems with audio or what you're seeing. I want to make sure I'm getting this right, so I'm just kind of fine-tuning this with regards to my ability to use all this. Anyhow, these showers and storms way up to the north, and they're not going to be of any consequence. So the first thing I want to do as we look into the forecast areas is we'll take a look at the satellite and see what's going on, and we'll also speculate a little bit about the tropics. But here is our eastern satellite view, and notice it's beautiful dry air across much of the Northeast and down to the Mid-Atlantic states, and clouds developing inland, and you have this the area of enhanced risk in the upper Midwest being indicated by clouds that are running down across Wisconsin and now up approaching Lake Michigan near Green Bay and just coming out of Minnesota and Iowa. So that sort of matches up with where we have the enhanced risk going on. But other than that, it's fairly quiet. Now, in the tropics, actually, I'm going to pull this back because I just want to show you, this is the old tropical depression right in here. And it seems to be moving westward, but also right to the north of it, you can see that there's an upper low that's spinning, and it looks like that's moving westward too. So it looked this morning, the satellite presentation with what was left of the depression actually looked a bit better. Maybe it got out of the way of some of the wind shear, but I'm starting to wonder now, as it doesn't look nearly as organized this afternoon. Plus, you've got this upper low that's migrating westward at the same time. So that may keep this from regenerating, keeping it in a strong wind shear environment. At least that's what it looks like at the moment. Now, out in the Pacific, we have a hurricane. We have Hurricane Eugene. So I'm going to widen this out as much as I can. And you can take a look. Right there is Hurricane Eugene with Category 3 status now, moving parallel to the coast, well offshore. So it's probably near its peak in terms of intensity, and it will be starting to weaken as we move through the next several days. This is not going to be any impact to any land area, and before you know it, it's going to be what most Pacific hurricanes become, which are remnant lows. Now here's the water vapor imagery, which I like to use because that really gives us a good feel for not only the wind shear that is going on, but it also shows us where the dry air is in the tropics. And here's that spinning upper low in the central Atlantic. It's almost right on top of the tropical, it's left of the tropical depression. Still showing some thunderstorms blowing up, but there has to be some strong shear over the top of this that's going on. You can see some of the higher cloud top, the darker colors here, getting kind of blown away a bit to the northeast. So there must be some westerly to southwesterly winds aloft that's producing some shear. But it perhaps where you're seeing the reddish area may be indicative of perhaps lighter wind shear there. I was looking at some of the numbers, and I noticed that the wind shear on the southwestern corner of this was actually pretty light, but when you go up into the northeastern quadrant, it was actually pretty strong. So just very, just one of those things. Sometimes these things do regenerate. I'm thinking this is probably not going to be one of those instances because of the strong upper low, unless either the upper low gets out of the way or the remnant open wave gets out of the way of the upper low. And right now they're kind of right on top of each other. But we still see that dry air that's in the central tropical Atlantic and goes all the way westward into the eastern Caribbean. This is that Saharan dust we've been talking about, and that it looks like it's starting to shrink a little bit. We also have the emergence of a system off the African coast. Now, this could be possibly what models are showing with regards to development. Some models are showing, because not all of them are. Some models are showing it, but we're going to take a look. I'm going to hope that this works, okay? Because if it does, we're in good shape here. All right, so I'm going to look at the GFS going forward, and you can take a look at this. I'm not exactly sure how it shows up on your screen, so let me just take a look and see. Oh, that's not so bad. I'm going to try to figure out how to make it wider, but let me play with it here. Hang on. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to have to figure out how to make this fit to the window, but I will get there. But look very hard. You can see this is now for Tuesday. We've got this weather front. Let me just roll it back to the beginning so we can get some semblance of order here. But we have this next weather front rolling through on Tuesday, and then that goes by. By the way, there is snow actually showing up on the GFS up in northeastern Canada and Labrador. You can see it right there. It's been doing that for the last couple of days. There's Eugene out in the Pacific Ocean getting ready to become a remnant low. Then toward the end of the week, we have a stronger warm front, cold front combination coming into the east. And then that goes by, and then we have another front that's going to sag southward. We're just pretty much in the same upper air pattern that we've been. There's really nothing that's changed with regards to this this pattern. It's been very, very stubborn. I'm going to put the upper air on, and I will eventually figure out how to make it bigger on the window. Okay, but when we look at the upper air on today's run, now here's that tropical system for developing for later next week, which the GFS was a little weaker with on this particular run. And I want to point out that the European does not show anything, much of anything. The Canadian, I think, did show something, but we'll look at that in a second. Right here is another trough toward the end of next week. And, this signature continues with these troughs coming down from in the northwest flow and strengthening when they reach the east coast. So this is going to be something, I've been mentioning it for the last couple of weeks. The trough in the east is a persistent pattern that we are seeing here, and we're going to have to, we'll have to pay attention to it if there is something to pay attention to, okay? Because I'm not yet convinced that there will be. All right, and I think that needs to be said here. You're going to see a lot of stuff flying on the internet over the next few days because of what some models have been doing. Now I'm looking at the Canadian, and the Canadian throughout its run, I mean, it shows something here out in the Atlantic, but you know what? It doesn't do anything with it, and neither did the European today. So maybe the GFS is onto something, maybe it isn't. But the bottom line is, until we actually have something tangible to play with in terms of a forecast and something that's actually there, we're not going to go too crazy about it. And I think anybody that does, you can certainly say that conditions are going to be favorable for development in the Atlantic later this week. But if the question of whether there's anything actually there is a whole nother matter. So, I'm trying to get everybody used to the fact that, you're going to have weather models spin this stuff up, and people are going to say certain things. I try to deal with everything in a very logical, calm fashion, looking forward. I'm always opened up to possibilities because the atmosphere can be a very fickle thing. But, until we have something real to deal with, this is, basically in speculative weather geek la land, and we're just going to treat it as such. Okay, so I'm seeing some of you folks on the chat. Hello to Bryce. Luis Ruiz, marginal risk of severe weather this Tuesday inland. Yes, the Storm Prediction Center does have a marginal risk inland of the coast throughout much of the inland New York, Pennsylvania, on up into parts of western New England, if my memory serves me correctly, and kind of arcing around into the Ohio Valley. Abedin Durakovic, I hope I said that right. When does wind shear usually die down? Well, it doesn't die down per se. I mean, you have to look at the overall environment. There's always wind shear going on somewhere in the tropical Atlantic and in the non-tropical Atlantic. It's a question of whether there's a strong enough up or low to produce that shear or not. And usually when you get deeper into the hurricane season, you see less shear, let's call it less unfavorable conditions going through August, September into early October, that the wind shear tends to relax just a little bit. And yes, Louise, too early to tell on the tropical development, but you know what the GFS shows in 10 days on this run is not what it'll show on the next one, nor is it what it showed on the prior run. So I think the best way to look at it is that, there's the potential maybe for something to develop, and until it does, we're just going to, just kind of look at things in a very logical way and not worry about specific GFS printouts at this point, nor should anybody, by the way. Tyray, if it was 5, it's time to get. Yeah, I mean, if it was correct, if we were inside 5 days, yeah, then then we can get a real good, get our heads around what's actually going on meteorologically. Don Quixote says, thank you for the updates. Live on the South Texas Gulf Coast and will be especially concerned with hurricanes. Yes, and having formerly worked in the South Texas coast, I worked in Corpus Christi at KRIS-TV and from 1982 to 1983. So I am familiar with that particular area and the sensitivity regarding tropical storms and hurricanes. Hi to Bryce. Hi back. Tyray, thank you. I appreciate that you're enjoying the streams. I'm going to try and do more of these. As soon as I can get I'm gradually getting my arms around the software. So this is good, and I'm hoping that when something eventually does threaten, and something will threaten somebody somewhere, that I'll be able to do a really smooth broadcast for you. Hi to Eric P. You're welcome on the Me Producing. Thank you for the thank you. We're quite welcome. Chanel Archer's watching from Barbados. Welcome, Chanel. Yep. You know what? Let's see over the next few days what happens out in the tropical Atlantic. Uh, sometimes the Canadian model is usually the one, at least it was last year, where it basically spun every low it could find. I think there was one point where it had like 5 hurricanes going on in one place, and the reality was that I don't think we had any. So that's why you got to take these things with a grain of salt. Dwayne McChesney from South Jersey, thank you for being here on the live stream. I really appreciate it. And tell your friends, share the videos out. These posts will post in the video library. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel, because then you'll get notifications when I go live or when I just put up regular videos, and you'll never be without. Okay, and it's all free too, which is even great. Tyre, do you think the large up spike in positivity of the PNA is why the persistent trough in the east is there? Well, Ty, I haven't looked at the indices lately, so I'm going to take your word for it that the PNA is, I usually look at those indices more in the wintertime than in the summer. But I believe, yes, if the PNA is spiking positive, that does tend to favor a trough in the east. And right now, the last time I looked, the NAO was forecast to be positive too. So it makes sense, because these weather fronts are not stalling; they're just they're moving through and moving along. So we do have some progression here from west to east. One of the things, whenever you have a trough set up in the eastern part of the United States, one of the things that you have to be really careful of is if any one of these troughs decides to dig further south, and it's timed with something tropical along the east coast. If we had the ridge in the east and the trough in the west right now, it would be kind of a no-brainer, because you could just say that anything would either get deflected west into the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, or it would shoot up, possibly into Florida or the southeast coast of the United States, but it wouldn't move up to the northeast. You got to have a specific setup, and it's got to be timed almost just right. You have to have the trough digging down and around and the tropical system in basically the right position, latitude and longitude wise, to bring it up. It's really, it's like you're firing an arrow at a target, and it's hard. It's just to have all those things coming together doesn't happen very often. That's why we don't get landfalling hurricanes very often in the Northeast. Tyler Knepp, is it too early to have a hurricane in the month of July? Well, hurricanes in the month of July do happen, especially as you get toward the second half of the month, and particularly around the last week, and things start to gel up. In some of the most active seasons, you have seen them rather early, but on the average season, you usually don't see anything at this point. We are now 9 days into July, so it would be pretty unusual. Actually, if you look at the statistics with tropical cyclone development, there's almost like a bit of a dip in climatology during the early part of July, coming out of June into the early part of July. There's kind of a little bit dip in activity, and then it begins to slowly pick up as you go into the second half of the month. Douglas Haw says this summer seems to be humid without very hot temperatures. Now, Douglas, I don't know where you are geographically, and I would just say to those of you, by the way, who participate in these chats, please let me know geographically where you are, so that I can better address whatever your comment or question is. But I can tell you that at least here in the Northeast, it's been my experience, from day to day, that we've had, we certainly have not had unrelenting 90-degree plus days. We've had 2-3 day heat waves of 90 plus and I'm talking from, say, central New Jersey northeastward and away from the coastline, because the coastline sea breezes have prevented some areas from even getting close to 90. But I think we've had more days where the humidity has been down. But you're in Lancaster, PA. Okay, so now Tyler, you're in Lancaster, PA. Douglas is in South Central PA. Okay, great. So that it's a little different for you, because the average temperature for the month of June for my neck of the woods, where I live geographically and nearby, was near or a little bit above normal by about a degree or so. So either it was like a fraction of a degree to about 1 degree above average. But where you are, I believe some stations were 3 or even 4 degrees above average. So you probably had a lot of very warm days, but you haven't had a lot of 90-degree plus days. And with the big ridge in the west, that would not be a surprise. You're going to have 90-degree days. Certainly out there, you're going to have 100 and 110-degree days out in the west, the desert areas for sure. But as long as that ridge is out in the west, you can't have prolonged heat here in the east. You could have the odd day or two here and there, but in terms of 3, 4, 5 days or more in a row, and I mean, I can remember heat waves over the years where we've had 10, 11 days in a row of 90 plus temperatures. So a 3-day 90 plus is not a big deal to me. That's one of the reasons why I wish they would go back to the old definition of a heat wave being 5 days in a row instead of 3 days, because I just think 3 days is too short. It's either 5 days in a row of 90 plus or 3 days in a row of 95 plus. I think that, to me, is a fair definition of a heat wave. Carol Wintermoot, I hope I said it right, in Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania. Welcome. And Abadan Durakovic, you're in Staten Island, New York, so you get to see me sometimes on WPIX TV. And Eric, you're in South Central PA, so welcome to all of you that are watching. Golden Twister 888 says, I wonder if this pattern will change. Well, we've been kind of in this now, I think, for the last 6 or 7 weeks, and I don't see any sign of this changing right now. The ridge in the west does flatten out a bit in the next couple of weeks for a few days, but then it just flies back up in the west, and the trough comes right back in the east. So for the time being, it appears that this pattern it remains unchanged going forward. Okay, Bryce T, is there anything forming in the Atlantic at the moment? No, there isn't anything out in the Atlantic per se. We've been watching, there's a wave that's moving off the African coast, but that is for later this week, and that's the system that some of the models, particularly the GFS, is doing something with east of the Windward Islands later this coming week. So far, by the way, the National Hurricane Center has rates no chance for tropical cyclone development in the next 2 days and also in the next 5 days. Tyree, do I believe that the Enzo will slowly begin to slow development of the tropical storms? Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I haven't really looked very closely at what the status is with regards to the El Nino. I know I've seen a few people talk about it, and they're already talking about it with respect to the upcoming winter, and it just makes me want to shake my head. It's July. Let's get through the summer first and in the fall. I have to tell you, and quite honestly, for those of you who haven't heard me say this, I have a very difficult time getting my head around the long range. I know a lot of people are very good at it, and they're certainly better than I am at it. I'm a short range guy. That's how I learned, that I cut my teeth in a time when, the longest model that we had going out long range was 72 hours. So, I kind of come from a different world, and a lot of the up and coming Mets that, that came after me were exposed to a lot of this longer range stuff that I never really was. So for me, it's kind of a work in progress. I've been trying to slowly learn about it. I mean, I do understand how the El Nino works in general and how the La Nina works in general, and, the broad applications and implications of what an El Nino or La Nina can do to winters and tropical storm seasons. But I'm not really good at watching the sort of day-to-day stuff because I got too much to do forecasting with all the local stuff that I got to do to give a whole lot of time to the long range. But we get closer to the winter, I start to look at that stuff a bit more. Yeah, I'm really avid in the 90 day, the 5 day 90 plus to me makes a lot of sense. That's why I wonder sometimes, you get these, you get people making observations that, we have more heat waves. And I just wonder in terms of the statistics, are they comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges? Because, they used to count heat waves as 5 days or more. Then they went to 3. So I would like to know when they quote those statistics, are they quoting 3 day heat waves? Did somebody go back and actually count the number of times we've had 90 degrees 3 days in a row or not? Or are they just saying, are they comparing both and saying, okay, we have more heat waves now? Well, sure, because now instead of 5 days, you're using 3 as the number. John Balance, last time this much rain in New Jersey had a big winter in 09-10. Think has same effect, a lot of rain, more snow. John, I don't know that there's any real correlation. Somebody would have to go and actually look at the data. I've never seen, it doesn't mean it's not out there. I've never seen data that links all of that. And I think there's a lot of folks that have tried to look at various combinations of, hot summers to cold winters, wet summers to snowy winters, wet summers to warm winters, so, cold summers to warm winters, and so on. I don't know that there's any correlation because I think the long range patterns are too volatile and change too often. We can have this pattern now, but that's not to say that even in August that we're going to be in the same pattern. When maybe the ridge will pop back up in the east and we'll suddenly get hot with very little in the way of rainfall. So I don't know that there is a longer term connection. That's why I kind of like to deal with this stuff as it comes, because every season you have, every summer, every fall, particularly every winter, there's a signature pattern that develops, and it kind of sticks with that pattern for a long period of time. So if you recognize that, you're going to have much more forecast success if you're a forecaster, particularly if you're a young forecaster. Maybe pay attention to this. But if you can recognize what the signature pattern of a given season is, things kind of tend to repeat themselves. Maybe not exactly, but they do tend to rhyme. There's an old saying that history doesn't repeat exactly, but it does tend to rhyme. And if you can recognize the signature pattern early, you can have some pretty good forecasting success, particularly when instances come up where something wants to kind of go against that prevailing pattern. And it'll help you as a very good forecast tool. Okay, so I have actually gone almost 28 minutes. So this is great. I appreciate all of you being on here. I really enjoy this very, very much. And thank you so much for being here on my YouTube channel. If you are new here for the first time, hit the subscribe button so you get my live streams on a regular basis. And we will continue to figure out how the software works so that I can make these live streams look really good. And also, you can check out my latest website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com if you are interested in New York City. Angry Ben, my friend Ben Scott, takes care of that on nycweathernow.com. And I also have weatherlongisland.com for Long Island weather, although I don't always get to update that as much as I would like. And of course, you can find me on my Facebook page under Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. So everybody, I hope you had a great time with what I did this afternoon. And we will, again, I'm going to try and do these on a regular basis, particularly when there's weather breaking. It's a little tough for me because of my work schedule, because I work at late afternoon and evening. So they're going to be, those time periods are going to be very tough for me to do live streams, but we'll figure out a way. And get outside and enjoy the rest of your weekend, okay? The weather is great this evening, so find yourself something to do and have a great time and enjoy the low humidity and sunshine if you happen to be in my neck of the woods. All right, have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will talk to you on Monday.